Salute omnes, I am Ruminous, and today we're talking about the gameplay aspect of movement. Movement revolves around the physical motion and the speed of the characters that are both playable and unplayable within the game. Movement needs to be fast enough to feel progress, but not so fast that it seems uncontrollable. The speed and movements of the character all depend on the game, genre, levels, stats, that kind of thing. Some games will allow acceleration and kind of changes and upgrades to their speed and changes in motion, all that kind of stuff. But most don't allow that because the game is kind of designed around the specific stats, motions, speed that they made, and it kind of breaks the game, so not every game allows that. Alright, I've been given months playing against a computer, which is probably a bad idea. But man, I'm already getting thrashed. No, I missed. Getting kicked into oblivion. Platformers, racing games, and fighting games tend to have faster speeds and movement sets, because these games tend to rely on speed and repetitive actions. Movements, thus, need to be reliable and comfortable enough for the player for these games. The speed needs to match the area, the enemies, and the level design. Developers should be careful not to limit the movement of the player. Often, during tutorials, games will lock all the movements except for the one that the game really wants to teach, which is obnoxious when the player just wants to play in their own way, especially if the player has already figured out the lesson. If I already know the thing, stop trying to force me to do the thing. Don't look at me like that, Sonic. I'm trying to get my stuff set up. Leave me alone. Movement should feel fluid and consistent, but also match the setting. Characters should not slow down or accelerate without reason. Sonic games are built with the idea of slow acceleration, and the rate of acceleration is consistent across the entire game. You start slow, you end up fast. The entire game is about running through and navigating the traps and landscapes, even in fast motions, so the movement is stable across the entire game. There's nothing that really breaks up the flow of the movement or the speed. You're supposed to do that, you're supposed to navigate. Alright, it's time to proceed swiftly now. Let's go! And I failed miserably. Immediately right in the trash, and I did it again. Resident Evil also has consistent movement across the entire game, where the character will continue to move in the same direction during the camera shifts, even if the camera's focusing in a different direction. The speed and movement in Resident Evil matches its setting. The setting in the early games, particularly 1 through 3, and some of the spin-offs like Code Veronica, are all about slow movement, taking your time, plotting your movements, all that sort of thing. You typically don't know where you are, you're typically surrounded by zombies, you don't have a lot of resources, and so you're supposed to take your time. Although you do have a running animation, which is, you know, more of a leisurely stroll, in this mansion filled with zombies, which I feel like should be more aggressive. You should be moving, you should gotta go fast in the first games, but the setting and the movement match. You're not supposed to be sprinting through this, you're supposed to just kind of be moving and plotting and taking your time. Most people are like, why are you shooting them? You should just be running past them. And I say, because I'm bad at this game. I'm not good with the tank controls and static camera ones. The remakes, I can obviously dodge around people, but I can't do it in this one because I am hot, spicy garbage. Consistent movement is critical for a player to feel in control of the game. I talked about consistency with control and how important it was for specific verbs, but it's also incredibly important for your movement as well. If the movement is inconsistent or irregular, then the player will definitely get frustrated since they don't trust the game to actually do what it's supposed to. Their commands are at the mercy of the game, not their own skill. The Super Mario Bros. Games have the characters slide slightly after landing to simulate more realistic momentum, since things don't come to a complete stop from fast speeds without severe damage, particularly to your shins. Your beautiful one of those shins are gonna snap if you go from 300 miles an hour to a dead stop, especially after you jump. The game is consistent in this, and it can be expected, but it's also negated by moving in the opposite direction. But this realistic thing was eventually removed in the later games in the series simply because it gets obnoxious to have to control your landing after every jump. Realism doesn't always have a place in video games. Sometimes you have to take away realism in order to preserve the fun or entertainment of it. If real life was as fun as video games, trust me, we would all be out doing that. The graphics are awesome, the NPC dialogue options are endless. The only time it lags is when you take NyQuil, and all of a sudden it's 5 hours later, but your cold is gone. That's pretty nice. Super Mario World has impeccable movement. The player can walk to make slow movements or run to traverse large areas. The run has a slight acceleration, but it does not need long to perform a long jump or flight with the cape. The jump is high enough to reach most areas, and the game is clear where Mario's regular jumps will not be enough to reach some secret areas. This game is garbage. Let a man fly! The realism of sliding after you land has been taken away in this game just because they realized it's not necessary, it's not that fun, it's easier and more consistent to just stop momentum, even though it's unrealistic. Sunderd's grappling hook is designed to cross large gaps and access other areas, but it also allows the player to grapple onto enemies and get closer, or fling the hell away. Alright, they're coming to sharpen my pencils, ladies and gentlemen. The grappling hook serves its general purpose, but it also grants more mobility in battle and a method to press enemies or run away if needed. The issue, however, is that the player does not have full control over the target that the hook seeks, since it kind of goes after the closest enemy, sometimes, typically. It kind of has its mind of its own. Get me out! Let me out! Oh hey, secret! No, I didn't want to go that way. This sometimes means that the enemy behind is picked rather than enemy ahead, which can prove annoying when trying to flee or press on, since you don't really know exactly what it's going to do. Speed is, as the name suggests, how fast do the actions happen. Like everything, it depends on the game, the genre, the level design, whatever. Speed needs to match the intensity and the setting of the game. If a game is tense, it should be moving quickly. If a game is a more puzzle or mystery based, slower actions are more fitting. Platformers should be quick enough to speedrun, but not so quick that they can't be controlled. JRPGs will often have slower movements, as the game is generally designed around the story, the atmosphere, and the character development, so quick actions will often ruin that atmosphere. Resident Evil has consistent and reliable movement, but the speed is often an issue during the boss battles, when the boss is just as fast, or even faster, than the player, and the character's taking a leisurely stroll. Would you put some effort into it, please? There's a weird-eyed creature chasing me down. It's creepy. I don't want to be here anymore. Please just leave me alone. I won't tell anybody you're here. Please let me go. Uh-oh. Sir. Sir, I don't want what you're selling. Sir. Sir, can you get away from me? Thank you. Oh, god damn it. He finished his animation. And then grabbed me. Anyway, because that's what he wanted to do. The Uncharted series actually resolves this issue where the player moves at advanced speeds during combat, but goes back to a light jog when the conflict is over, which also is a guiding mechanic to let the player know that everything is safe. And I'll get into those mechanics when I get to the mechanic videos. Mega Man X7 is notorious in many areas, but it notoriously has a terrible speed for its game. The levels are not overly long, but it takes the characters forever to actually move, compared to all the other games in the series where the player can soar across the ground and through the sky and beat the entire level in a minute or so. Why is my dash slower than my run? Although there's comments for the brevity of the levels, it's important that the player feels progress in their movement. Otherwise, it becomes irritating to continue, or to have to replay after dying or failing, or going through a second playthrough of the game. And now I gotta do that all again? Really? From the beginning of the level? It took me 7 years to get there. And look, it took actually 4 minutes to get there. I would be done the other games in 4 minutes. And I'd be having way more fun. The reason I died is because I'm rushing to get through this. I'm rushing as much as I can in this terrible, terrible scheme. That move at the speed of molasses and trapped in a gravity well. A slow character can be useful in certain themes or situations or genres or whatever, but it should not feel like eons have passed since I've completed a segment of this game. My god, let me go! Kingdom Hearts 3 severely increased the size of its levels from its previous entries, but it also massively increased the speed of the character's movements to match. Thankfully in this game, even though the levels are big and kinda empty, they let you move and kinda do a bunch of weird, crazy things. Even though the levels are longer, it takes roughly the same amount of time as usual to go through a level. This makes it less tedious to go back through the levels when you're looking for collectibles. When expanding the levels, the open space should be filled with more collectibles, enemies, or scenery to keep the extra space from feeling bland, and it's also necessary to be cautious about making things bigger without purpose, as just making stuff larger or more expensive can become annoying if it serves no purpose, or if there's really nothing there to do. Seriously, you have all this beautiful scenery, but if you got these big open spaces, put some stuff here, man. More than one box. Although what may seem to be common sense, sometimes the aspect of movement and speed are overlooked in certain areas of a game in order to add specific mini-features or parts of a level that seem fun and can be fun, but it breaks because it's not actually designed for it. Ensure that when you're playing an area, a puzzle, a fight, whatever part of the game, that the movements and speed are fitting for that scene, and more importantly, don't require absolute perfection. Again, you kind of want that latency, and you kind of want a barrier when you have precision. Thanks everybody for watching. If you liked this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring the bell to be notified of future videos. I will continue on in this series next Wednesday with the aspect of view and camera. If you have any comments that you think are relevant, if you have any constructive criticism, anything you'd like to add to further along this discussion, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section below, and I'll see you guys next week. Walete, omnes.